Have you ever noticed something unsettling? Some people don't raise their voice. They don't argue. They don't defend themselves. They simply withdraw. And suddenly the room feels different. The air thickens. People become uneasy. Questions appear where certainty once lived. No explanation is given. No justification offered. And yet, everything changes. Now imagine this question landing gently but firmly inside you. What would happen if you stopped reacting? If instead of responding immediately, you paused? If instead of explaining yourself, you chose silence? If instead of emotional availability, you chose presence with yourself? This is where the real shift begins. Because the truth is, the moment you stop being endlessly available, the world around you doesn't become calmer. It becomes uncomfortable. Not because you've done something wrong, but because people were used to accessing you. Your emotions, your attention, your reactions, without resistance. And when that access disappears, the illusion breaks. Stay with me, because what we're about to explore is not avoidance. It's not coldness. It's not ego. It is psychological sovereignty. And by the end of this video, you may never relate to people or to yourself the same way again. If this kind of deep psychological insight resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe to the Mind Kit. These teachings build on each other, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Chapter 1. The Power of Withdrawal. Why Silence Terrifies People. Most people believe power comes from expression, from speaking, from explaining, from defending, from being understood. But the psyche doesn't work that way. True power often emerges in absence, not presence. When you stop reacting automatically, when you no longer rush to clarify your intentions, when you don't soothe, rescue, or emotionally regulate others, something fascinating happens. People begin to project. They grow anxious. They test you. They provoke you. They try to pull you back into the familiar dynamic. Why? Because your predictability was never neutral. It was useful. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." So ask yourself, who becomes irritated when you go quiet? Who feels entitled to your emotional response? Who panics when they can't read you anymore? Their reaction is not about you. It is about loss of control. And this is where most people misunderstand withdrawal. Conscious withdrawal is not punishment. It is not manipulation. It is not emotional violence. It is the moment you stop offering your nervous system as a public resource. And for people who learn to regulate themselves through you, this feels like abandonment. But in truth, it is individuation. Chapter 2. Availability as Conditioning. Why you were taught to be accessible. From early childhood, most of us were trained, subtly, consistently, to believe that love is earned through availability. Be responsive. Be agreeable. Be helpful. Be emotionally present, even when you're empty. You learn that saying yes keeps the peace. That explaining yourself prevents rejection. That being needed equals being valued. But here is the truth no one said clearly enough. Excessive availability is not kindness. It is self-abandonment. When you are always accessible, you become predictable. You become functional. You become an emotional utility. And what is predictable becomes usable. People don't always want you. They want validation, comfort, regulation, attention, emotional labor. And when you stop providing it on demand, you're called cold, distant, changed. Not because you changed, but because you stopped serving the role. If this is hitting close to home, pause for a second. Breathe. And if you're finding clarity here, gently tap the like button. It helps this work reach the people who need it most. Chapter 3. The Persona Trap. The mask you forgot to remove. Carl Jung called it the persona. The mask we wear to be accepted, to be liked, to belong. The persona says, it's okay when it isn't. I understand when you're hurting. No problem when it costs you peace. And the more you identify with this mask, the further you drift from yourself. Here's the painful paradox. The more emotionally available you are for everyone else, the less available you become to your own inner life. You disappear from your own stage. And over time, this creates exhaustion without cause, resentment without direction, emptiness without language. You feel drained, but you don't know why. Because you were taught to give, not to contain. Chapter 4, Psychic Energy. Why reaction is the real leak. Jung understood the psyche as an energy system. Every thought consumes energy. Every emotion moves energy. Every reaction disperses energy. And the most expensive habit of all, unconscious reaction. When you defend yourself unnecessarily, engage in pointless arguments, explain your boundaries, try to be understood by the unwilling, you are leaking psychic energy. Jung famously warned, what you resist persists. The more you react, the more you bind yourself to the dynamic. Emotionally exhausted people are not weak. They are misdirected. And exhaustion creates vulnerability. Vulnerability attracts manipulators, emotional dependence, projection-heavy relationships. People who feed on reaction can sense, almost instinctively, who has porous boundaries. But a psyche that contains its energy, it creates gravity, presence, unspoken authority. That's why some people command respect without effort. They are not louder. They are sealed. Chapter 5, Projection and Silent Manipulation. Here's where things get uncomfortable. Most manipulation is not aggressive. It's subtle, quiet, psychological. People don't control you by force. They control you by pattern. They learn what triggers you, what guilts you, what pulls you back, and then they repeat it. Jung called this projection, placing unconscious material onto another. But when you're emotionally available, you become a container for other people's unresolved shadow. You become the rescuer, the listener, the emotional regulator. Not because you chose it, but because you didn't stop it. And the moment you withdraw, the projection collapses. People no longer see what they need to see in you. And this terrifies them, because now they must face themselves. Chapter 6, Silence as Psychological Power. The modern world fears silence. Silence disrupts narratives. Silence removes leverage. Silence exposes internal noise. But Jung saw silence as fertile ground, not emptiness, potential. When you stop reacting, you begin to observe. Patterns become visible. Games lose power. Silence is not absence. It is compression. It concentrates energy. That's why some people panic when you don't respond. Why they escalate. Why they provoke. Your silence takes away their control over the story. And suddenly, they're exposed. If you're still here, you're doing deep inner work right now. Consider subscribing. The next video continues this journey into self-sovereignty. Chapter 7, Conscious Unavailability, Boundaries Without Guilt. This is where theory becomes practice. Conscious unavailability means not responding immediately, not explaining your no, not engaging emotionally by default. It is not cruelty. It is clarity. You don't owe. Constant access. Emotional labor. Explanations for self-protection. Jung believed individuation requires sacred isolation, a withdrawal not from life, but from distortion. And here's a powerful indicator of growth. Notice who resists your boundaries. Notice who becomes reactive. Notice who accuses you of changing. These reactions are confirmation, not warning signs. Chapter 8, The Loneliness of Strength, What Comes After Withdrawal. After withdrawal comes silence. After silence comes solitude. At first, it hurts. You question yourself. You feel guilt. You feel loss. But slowly, something stabilizes. You feel present, whole, centered. You no longer chase connection. You choose it. Jung said individuation requires separation from the collective. Not forever, but long enough to hear your own voice again. You stop being shaped by reaction and start shaping your reality. You may lose people, but you will find yourself. And that is not loss. That is rebirth. Finally, the choice. So here is the question that remains. Are you willing to be misunderstood? To protect your peace? Are you willing to be alone? To become whole? If this message touched you, write in the comments, I choose my peace. Let's see how many are ready for this transition. And stay with the Mind Kit, because the next video goes even deeper.